Greetings, nerds. This is Saint and Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Paul. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Hanging in there, Sarah. Hope you're doing well, and looking forward to talking House of the Dragon, episode 306, Faceless Men.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I know. Just jumped the gun. I jumped the gun tonight.
I say that, and then I go right into the IMDb summary, which reads, while Rhaenyra and Daemon focus on how best to deal with Ormund, tensions among their neglected allies begin to erupt. And so we are starting with team opening sequence, okay? Obviously, we're going to start with team opening sequence, which aka Ser Criston's death. So last night you texted me and you said you've had some laugh out loud moments.
Yeah.
I think I did too, but I more remember just saying wow. As soon as the quote unquote supposed dead Rivermen like suddenly surged and began to battle, I was
Yeah.
just like, wow,
Yeah.
well played. That
Well
would be for not only Tully, but also because you knew he was playing some kind of game from the previous week. But you also know Ser Criston, and it was such a trap as well that it felt like a very good surprise to kick off the episode. And it's funny because as Ser Criston was taking out those soldiers, I literally thought to myself, well, that's really cool of him to do. And I mean, it's all scripted that he fights off all of these people, blah, blah, blah. It'll be interesting to see how he eventually dies.
Yeah. Yep.
Not knowing 5 minutes later, he would have the most unceremonious death that did remind me of Robb Stark. I do have to say it's not, and I'm not comparing this to the Red Wedding at all. Don't get it twisted. I'm just saying in terms of a character buildup, arguably an unceremonious death, it was very similar. And I mean, granted, you got arrows, and thank God they didn't have one of them go through the eye. That would have been too much. That one was so close, and I was like, dear Lord. But what are your thoughts about this unceremonious opening sequence?
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely one of the laugh out loud moments. Just thinking about Cole, the prior week's episode where, he was talking about how he just, whenever Gwayne was like trying to say, why are we continuing to do this, and why it's pointless, and how he was, I'm the greatest warrior in Westeros, and they're gonna sing songs about me and all that kind of stuff, and then to be just taken out like by a chump, like like that. And it was kind of, but it was a weird way. It was a little bit anticlimactic too.
Yeah.
Because it was Lady Blackwood was the one who fired the arrows, and it was anticlimactic, but also, what I think couple things that stood out with me was one, whenever he knew when Tully told Cole, I made a promise to the dead Cole, I promise I build a sept out of your traitor's bones. I don't have enough bones yet. That, and then the moment that he pulled out the handkerchief from Alicent, and started wrapping it around the sword, and in that moment, whenever he was doing that, it was like the nihilistic, the fatalistic thing, that why it was so smart of Gwayne to get away from all of that really made sense. It made sense, and also it was very like fitting for Cole in his last moment to, even though he was like, he made the point of like, I'm doing this for me, and I'm not I'm not a servant to anyone anymore. He still had that nobleman like moment of like doing it in service of, I won't say team. Well, I think, in service to Team Green. I mean, he was still like, I'm going down as a company man. And so whenever those arrows hit, it was just like, oh, okay, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I mean, everybody knows how, he's definitely not a fan favorite, even though I will say he has gotten a little bit more nuanced this third season. But, I think, there were cheers throughout the fandom whenever Criston Cole got taken out.
Yeah, I didn't cheer, although he has been on my unlikable character list for a long time now. But I also, every episode this season has at least one frame where you can pause and it's a portrait. And that frame, when they do the faraway shot at the end and you see how surrounded they are, and the few men who are left standing for Hightowers are like surrounded, and and then you start to see the others run, and it's like ants. And it's just such a clever shot. And it's like this is a battle, but like you said, it was anticlimactic, and yet this character who's been a vocal point gets taken out. I mean, definitely sets up a bookend for something else that happens at the end of the episode. But I like that it's interesting because this season we've spent a lot of time with Ser Criston and Gwayne returns to Tumbleton.
Yeah.
And he isn't a part of this. He's already diverged. He's like, fighting on is madness.
Yep.
Which, there's a lot of fighting happening though. Like you can see Ser Criston and call him crazy and everything, but you go into Tumbleton, there's wackadoos happening all over there too. Like everyone is fighting in their own way. It's just a different kind of fighting per se.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, I called it Team Ormund, but Team Gwayne. I mean, all the way for Team Gwayne. He might be preferred. You all know that I do have a soft spot for Alicent. We get some great sexist lines from Ormond in this episode, including Rhaenyra will not burn her own subjects because she is a woman. Squeamish. I do like the continued making sure people understand everyone's perspective on the dragons.
Yeah.
And that perspective Rhaenyra still has and still knows. She has not fallen into fed into what Daemon has been telling her.
No.
So and it's also handcuffed her. And Ormond is using that to his own advantage. He may claim it's because she's a woman, but it's also more of like the political aspects that would do. Gwayne comes in, and then we learn a lot.
Yeah.
And we learn also very little about the dynamics between Ormond, Gwayne, and Daeron. And it's a field day. I mean, you have one scene where you have Daeron and Gwayne, and Daeron is mad that his uncle left him with Ormond, rightfully so. And they both know who Ormond is and what he is. Now, I like the vagueness, but I also need to understand, because we've had conversations in the past about Ormond and his relationship with Daeron and about the abuse.
Yeah.
We know some form of abuse has taken. There's a line in this episode about Gwayne and Daeron leaving with their backs turned. That is, in my interpretation, I was just like, that sounded a bit, I didn't really understand what was implied there. And so to feed into this line about, what he is, now, I do understand the other side of this where it's just like, how much of a crazy lunatic who is power hungry at the end of the day he is, and very controlled. So what was your interpretation of these first interactions between these three family members?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. So I, like you, when I heard the line about the back to the wall, I did also think that there was some abuse there, SA type of abuse.
Yep.
That was what we've talked, and whenever we talked about the abusive nature of Ormond's relationship to, and we pondered if that was one of them. I mean, originally I was like, well, maybe it's just more emotional abuse than a physical thing, but there was that aspect that came. That was one of the things that came up was our conversation about that. The other thing that came up, and I think that's something that I've seen just prevailing conversations a lot of on social media and other places, has been that Gwayne is gay.
Yes. Yeah.
That line, and also a line about the, I guess, getting comfort in a feathered bed or something like that. It was, whenever Gwayne was like stepping off when he wanted to go get cleaned up, those were the two things. And And if that's the case, it seems very clear in the show that that Ormond at least doesn't seem to have a wife or doesn't have male heirs. So him molding Daeron and treating Daeron like like his own child has multiple levels to it because one, yes, he does he does want to become basically put Daeron on the throne so he could be basically the power behind the king.
Puppet King.
There's a figurehead. Ormond's the power.
Yeah.
One, two, something that because leading to that supports the thought that Gwayne is that there's if Ormond is killed, then Gwayne would be the next in line as far as senior male Hightower. So for him to go back to Old Town makes sense just to make sure that that their whole family can't get wiped out there by some chance. Yeah.
Are you talking about Gwayne or Ormond? The one who's going back to Old Town.
That's right. Yeah, that makes sense for Gwayne to go back to Old Town.
Yeah.
So that he won't be there with Ormond if Rhaenyra takes the town out.
Right.
So.
Right. But there's also friction and between the cousins.
Yes.
Over that. Like and there I liked the start of something I really am interested in understanding is Ormond's thoughts on Otto. Because everything you just talked about and how he's using Daeron is very much Otto.
Yeah.
Ally Aegon. So I took it he does not like his uncle, but he probably doesn't like his uncle the same way Aemond doesn't like Daemon. Okay.
Right.
They're two sides of the same coin. They're very much the same person. So, but yes, I agree with a lot of what you just said. And then we kind of have this moment of like Gwayne is questioning why Daeron is going along with this plan that will ultimately get him killed.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but and I really don't know how much this stood out to anybody. But to me, I was very happy to hear Daeron use the word savages.
Yeah.
Because that is the way Ormond talks about the Targaryen. So just with that single word and his use of it, that despite all odds, Ormond's influence is working.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Daeron does despise that half of him.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too, I think, is Daeron is also very self-aware of what Ormond is trying to do here in his conversations with Gwayne.
I'm right. The puppet, and he says it. So I feel like a puppet. I feel like a fool. I feel like a child. Like he gets all of that.
Yeah.
It's interesting though that does he really understand how much influence he has been fed or taken in terms of dislike for the other half of himself? Like you've heard it now a few times, whether it be him or whether it be Ormond say, you are the son of Viserys. But they say that in a way where it's just like, that's what the people want to hear. Yeah. We don't believe that. We don't care about that because we know that you are maybe blood related, but you weren't raised by him.
Right, right.
So you're the closest and the farthest thing from a Targaryen. Is exactly what Ormond wants.
Yeah.
And this also, so we get a lot of the cousin relationship because of the whole you're a coward for returning and not continuing to fight, which kind of sets up for a very surprise scene, pun intended, with the envoy from Baratheon. I just like how Baratheon is just a figure. Boris Baratheon is just he's in the background. We're gonna see him maybe one day, who knows? But the use of the name and we see this envoy in King's Landing, and then we see an envoy in Templeton all of a sudden. Yeah, and we get the payoff for the stink. For the stink. And my interpretation is that Ormond would have picked up on what was really happening if they did not smell so bad. It's because of that. That's why he acted so cowardly in that moment and so weak in that moment. It wasn't that like he wouldn't have been able to figure it out. He has that much sensitivity when it comes to smell. And he proved that after he threw up afterwards.
Yeah, which is funny how he's like, calling out Rhaenyra for being all squeamish and, the
Yep.
sexism, like, that was a chef's kiss as far as how to finish that whole sequence out.
Yeah, you get
Yeah.
a point for Rhaenyra on
Yep.
that, and then you get a point for Gwayne as well, who
Yeah. So
effortlessly,
yeah. You're
like,
so you're
kills
so s
all of these
yeah.
assassins who were there to kill his
Yeah.
nephew. The
Yeah, I
funny
mean,
thing is, I wonder if Gwayne ever had a thought like, "Oh, I could let that one go and kill Ormond. He
I think
won."
yeah, no, I mean, the sense of smell, Ormond's heightened sense of smell, saved his bacon for sure, but yeah, but also, whenever the assassin, like, put out the name, I guess it was Eris Baratheon or whatever, was like, "Nah, I met that
Mhm.
Baratheon before, you're not it." So
Right.
so it
Yeah,
was just
Gwayne,
yeah,
I like that they made sure that we understood this kind of felt like a reminder, even though in previous episodes, when alongside Ser Criston, he does feel weak. He does feel like too much like a noble and doesn't understand the world. But in this scene alone, it's redemption moment, and he
yeah,
becomes the hero, the protector of his nephew, and as well as someone who, much like Alicent, has grown up in the courts.
yep,
Like, he knows people, and
yeah,
so he can suss out when an assassin is playing a noble and when
yeah.
in this moment. But
So I
I
wanna
like
go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna go to this final moment between Gwayne and Ormond,
Yeah,
and where they are watching Daeron, and Gwayne says, "He'd make a good king, not that that matters to you. I think you sacrifice lives to feed your own pride, although you would never sacrifice your own." And I think that's honestly true about a lot of characters on this show.
yeah, yeah,
And there's a lot of proof in that in not only this episode, but many episodes
yeah,
previous, because the Game of Thrones is a very selfish game. And people think that they are going to get what they want. And then it's funny how life and the writers do otherwise.
yeah.
But do you think, because they end that moment also with Gwayne asking Ormond what's the real plan here? Do you think whatever Ormond tells him will be the truth?
There'll be a version of the truth, just to be able to get basically to keep I think Ormond definitely realizes that he owes Gwayne a solid. He
Mhm.
will definitely he will give him something that will be useful for Gwayne moving forward, and I think it has a lot to do with just how the episode ended. Well, because one of the other things that did happen during that whole, during that sequence was just how Ormond was praising Corlys, and as far as a potential,
And
hand. Yeah. So yeah. So I think maybe that was part of the ending of the episode, which was, Corlys getting captured. I think that maybe that was what he told Wayne, as far as, like, here's another way we're going to strike at Rhaenyra's a weakness in Rhaenyra's court.
interesting. Did Corlys just get captured, or did he get killed?
Captured. I think he got captured.
Okay, because my interpretation was killed.
No, I think given the context of everything that happened there in that
Yeah,
speech, I think Ormond, like, he's got spies everywhere, and he has probably heard about what's going down between Corlys and Renee.
right. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Well, we will see if because I thought that was a very clever thing to do where Corlys, after thinking like making this very Sir Christian speech
Yeah.
about like we've done what we set out to do, the
Mhm.
triarchy raiders are dead and now we can return away. I've been gone for too long. And then all of a sudden it's like, who goes there? But yeah, you're right. We didn't really see a clear death, and capturing does seem like a smart thing to do. Granted, I don't know. They had killed a lot of gold cloaks. So
True.
I don't know. I could see it go either way because of Corlys. Like he said it early on this season, like my name is gonna end with me. And that's
Yeah.
also a very unceremonious way to die and not what he wants. And we've seen in this episode a lot more of Alyn. And so I think even if captured, I don't it's not like Rhaenyra won't have a hand, and Corlys also doesn't want to be Rhaenyra's hand. So I guess now I'm questioning what kind of gossip went back to Ormond, because it's not like there's a lot of love there right now between those two.
True. Yeah, I mean, well, I think that's just it. I mean, Corlys has given literally everything to
Yep.
everything, and then I think to the sequence earlier in the episode between Corlys and Alyn when they're talking about,
Yep.
as far as getting the name back and all that, and and I really just loved how Alyn just called him out. It's like, dude, why are you so insistent on making this happen so fast when, like, wait
Yeah.
until, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so I think, again, remember that was a very public falling out between
Mhm.
Corlys and Rhaenyra. So
Yeah.
I am sure it got back to Ormond. And that's why he's like, I'm a strike again. Rhaenyra's not, Ormond,
I
even though he's
I
an asshole, he is playing chess. Rhaenyra's playing checkers.
Yeah. Roy doesn't know what game she's playing. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
I think, to your point, I think in capturing, it has less to do with using him as bait for Rhaenyra or anything, and more to do with another noble brought onto Ormond's side. Because that's it. Now that you bring this up as a possibility of what the ending of this episode means, I could very see that, considering there's a point of conversation in this episode about the fact that the noble houses are not on Team Ormond. They're not aligned. They're not showing up. So now he physically has to bring them to him. I don't know if that's going to work
Yeah.
considering the circumstances. But, we've
Yeah.
seen a lot. So, and it's, I mean, Rhaenyra is doing a very similar thing with keeping Ulf on house arrest. But I don't want to diverge too much from
Yeah.
teams right now, because, man, talk about Baela. Baela, wow. You just is very interesting line. I've never heard it said before, but I think this is the new pickup line. You're very dutiful.
God.
Very dutiful. Just the way she says it, and the fact
Yeah.
that it sounds like beautiful, I was just like, that is such clever writing. And that's all you needed to be like, oh, she just came on him. And
Yeah.
and the unfortunate thing is, and I don't like this that much, because I'm like, I don't think we need that. But my interpretation of an early scene between her and Addam was that Addam clearly likes her.
Yep.
So now we got this love triangle. Of course,
Yeah.
we're talking Targaryens. It has to be between siblings or related.
Well,
Yeah.
we will get past, it's Aryan line,
Yeah.
I see, I will say that was, to me, that was one of the flaws of the episode. Overall, I liked the episode, but, I mean, Alyn and Baela have only had two scenes together, once in 302 and this one.
Mhm.
And now we're supposed to believe that it just didn't feel earned. I mean, at the end
No.
game, yeah. So that I had to give it the merit to the episode for that one for me.
Yeah, it definitely came out of left field. And it kind of also felt a bit like, is Jace's body even like cold?
Exactly.
I thought you two were, like, again, related, but still had some kind of camaraderie, friend, grew up together, all stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it's grief sex that she wants.
Maybe.
I don't know.
It just felt shoehorned in there. Like, we got to have some romance because we got too much politics and political intrigue and all that stuff. So, and we cut short the battle with with Criston Cole. So we're just gonna throw some romance in here, and just so we can have it.
It feels like with Baela, arguably even Ray, and now Addam and Alyn, like, Addam was saying, like, once or twice in the,
Yeah.
like, all of this. Baela is about the same. Rhea has had more moments, rightfully so, considering her
Yeah.
circumstance. But it kind of feels like they want to make sure we understand what's going on with these people. We
Mhm.
can't, like, the focus can't be on them right now.
Right.
And so we will see how that pays off in the
Yeah.
end. So, because they're definitely juggling a lot, and it all has to feed back into this civil war and this,
Yeah.
and so they're using them where they can. But I agree. I feel like not as much shoehorned in, so much as, like, okay,
Yeah.
we're doing this now. Okay, got it. Because they also, like, the Rhea in this episode was just like a 2-minute thing too, where she's now the girl ain't cut out for this. She sees Moon dance there and she's like, I want to go talk to my sister. And it's like,
Yeah.
girl, didn't you self-exile yourself? Like,
Yep.
why 5 days ago, if that? Like, you could last maybe a year of self-exile. So I think that we just got one moment with Aegon in this episode.
Yeah.
And it was the best moment
Yep.
because
Yep.
you knew exactly what was going on. You knew how the scene would play out. It wasn't a surprise. But Aegon continues to fascinate me because
Yeah.
he just, and the actor who plays him is just doing an excellent job of just knowing that his character is arguably a villain and
Mhm.
yet also bringing humor and levity. So that, and then a Lannister stumbling and
Yeah.
like having to just squirm his way out of a situation, like nothing beats that.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
But the thing about it, so what I liked about that scene was not only what you just said, but also it really it echoed what Larys said last week. Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah.
Despite like Aegon, it solidified that moment from the previous episode even more as
Mhm.
being just a standout moment of arguably this entire season. Because Larys just point blank was like called him out for
Yep.
everything he is and just was like deal with it. Because at
Mhm.
the end of the day, we're only gonna survive if we have each other.
Yep.
So you can hate me for saying this, but I'm going to call you out. And I think it also was the first time because you have to remember a lot of Aegon's crash out in the previous episode had to do with loyalty
Mm.
and this idea that and his sense of privilege.
Yeah.
And Larys just stripped it all away and was just
Yeah.
like, you asshole.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
had it all.
Yeah.
You could have been something, but you got in your own way.
Mhm.
And like, forget being a good king. You're not even a good man.
Yeah.
And so to finally have someone call you out, but also tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And then also remain helping you and
Yeah.
remaining to like move you along. That's the first time he's ever experienced that. So then
Yep.
he wants to test and
Yep.
he tests it on Thailand just to see
Yep.
the difference.
Yeah.
And then that's why it's determined that they're going to go to Essos.
Yep. Yeah. You know, and I know just to quickly pivot back to Team Sneeze, Team Sea Snake, you know, Alyn did share, you know, Corlys did share with Alyn that, you know, that Thailand made it out of the gullet. So, of course, he's the master of coin. So you know, the king, you know, the kingdom is bankrupt, so the treasury's empty. So yeah, so I will, you know, we'll that definitely we'll see how Alan uses that information to, you know, to I guess strengthen his love, you know, his relationship with as the hand as far as, you know, trusted advisor in Rhaenyra's court. But yeah,
Well, Ormond might learn about it too.
that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Can we go to Team Alicent?
Yeah.
Okay. Because she had a lot to do in this episode as well, and very different ways. So they are found in the corridor. All is
Mhm.
right in the world.
Yep.
And immediately we get a great conversation between Alicent and Ren. And Ren has to obviously punish this
Yeah.
for them trying to escape. And she takes away their walking rights in the Godswood. And Alicent says, you cannot confine her. You know what she is. I don't know if she knew what she was, considering a scene later, but
Yeah.
I also, they did not, I was not expecting it. Alicent just comes out with it, comes out with the truth. She's pregnant.
Yeah.
And then we continue to have these moments between these two. Like, okay, so you want the truth? Here's the truth. She's pregnant. What are you going to do? Because
Yep.
I think I know what you're going to do. And by me thinking that, we're like immediately is like, how could you think that?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you get to choose. You can't be
Choose.
mad at me for just thinking about the logical options here, but
Yeah.
it's very much you either kill it
Yep.
or you get rid of it in some other cruel way. Like
Yeah.
there is no winning here for this
Yeah.
child.
Nope. None at all. None at all. Yeah. I couldn't help but think like whenever they were having the, you know, the double It's like double secret probation from like Animal House. Yeah, it's just like so you're double punishing us. But yeah, but to your point, I mean, it was like I thought whenever were having that conversation about your options, it's proved Alicent's point from a few episodes back where she was like, "That crown is going to make you do things
Yeah.
that you didn't think you were capable of."
Yeah, yeah, she uses that line in this episode and refers
Yep.
to that. But
Yep.
before she does that, she also says, "You are a Hightower, and to my court, you are my enemy." And
Mhm.
Alicent asks, "And to you?" And says, "Do not try me." But that is such a
Yeah. Yeah.
like like
Yeah. Like
clearly
yeah.
Alicent is not her enemy, and she does not know what to do about that.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, if Alicent was her enemy, Alicent would have been dead
Yep.
by now.
Exactly. Yeah. We would not. Yeah. Totally.
So
Totally would not be having that
instead,
conversation.
she's just holding her best friend prisoner
Mhm.
against her
Yeah.
will, and she thinks like that will build a healthy friendship moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
You killed my son. Your son killed my son. You killed my father. Blah blah
Yep.
blah. You took
Yeah.
away my crown. But
Yeah.
I still want you here, so we're just gonna lock you away and not throw
Yeah.
away the key, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, and now I'm gonna send you with one trustworthy sword to Harrenhal. I mean, it's just like, oh,
I love
yeah.
this. I love the fact that because we're getting more payoff with Helena and her visions, and she's a dreamer. That's what
Yep.
the word that Alison explains. And I love how it feeds into Aemon and discovering that he is in fact at Harrenhal. And that moment where Alicent realizes it and then immediately goes and tells Rhaenyra again the
Yeah.
truth. And this
Mhm.
is again why Rhaenyra give up Alicent, because
Yep.
she continues to tell her the truth, very much like Larys and Aegon.
Yeah.
So we get that moment, and then they have it. And now, granted, Alicent did not think about all the different ways this could play out, considering she ends up being tasked with to be the assassin. But that just goes with the theme of this episode. In
Yeah.
terms of like, the episode is called Faceless Man. I was just thinking after last night, man, talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing, just
Yeah.
everywhere. A wolf in just all of this is you don't know who your enemy is because you can't differentiate them from the crowd.
Yeah.
And everyone is blending in because everyone's desires are in a state of conflict and direct conflict. But there, in the scene where she tells Alicent, you have to go kill Aemond, that's when she gives that line. But I also like how that scene parallels the scene between Alys and Aemond in this episode.
Mm.
Because in this scene, Alicent is trying to explain to Ray, like, yeah, I never said Vhagar is there.
Yeah.
I only
Right.
said my son was. And that's the very thing that Alice is trying to explain to Aemond in her way to keep him to stay, because she is a little I don't know. There's so many different like horror villain characters that came through my mind right now. But my God, I don't like Aemond, but Aemond, you gotta get out.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts about Team Cursed, aka Alice and Aemond?
Wow. That, there's a lot to they really like so I like the thing I think the thing that really stood out to me with Alice and Aemon was the whole whenever she's talking about the frog and winter
Yep.
and how, and she has these, she has her own visions of, of ruling with him, helping him see a path forward to be the to be the lead Targaryen, and she has the means, but she shares with him, the dragon eggs that they could use to do that, and then so really that whole it worked for me just to see how all that how all that their relationship works. It's not. She seduced him in a sense of like appealing to his sense of, I guess, he's all, we talked about this before, the relationship Aegon and Aemon, where it's all about, having a dragon and those kind of things. And so if he could, yes, by having these dragon eggs and stuff, and also Harrenhal was, I guess the center of power before King's
At
Landing.
one point, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like reestablishing, that place as the center of power in Westeros. So I
Which
really like, yeah.
Which at the end of the day, that's what Alys wants. That's
Hmm.
her desire. It
Yeah.
all Aemon is there. It could have been Daemon.
Yeah.
Like
David had the
she
opportunity. Yeah.
right. She has seduced, she has manipulated the situation because it all goes back to you have to stay here. No, 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 you can't do that quite yet because Vhagar wants you to heal, so you have to stay here.
Yeah.
You can't take one dragon and face off against Rhaenyra's 6 dragons.
Right.
Like, that's an unfair fight. So
Yeah.
here I have eggs. FYI, they have to hatch and grow,
Yeah.
which,
Little thing.
hey,
Yeah.
I've seen Game of Thrones. I know that takes a few seasons. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to, again, stay here with me. And I like how you brought up the final point. Like, at the end of the day, she talks about the history of
Mhm.
Harrenhal, which
Yeah.
we know she wants Harrenhal. He wants it also for the glory and to restore something that it once was. I like the line, I will be the lady of the water and
Yeah.
you, the dragon lord, by my side, because it's very King Arthur.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's something about her performance and her character that we've seen for the last 2 seasons where she does bring that element of medieval witchcraft that we don't get. We haven't gotten in throughout the rest of House of Dragon or even the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So it's a very interesting thing, but now we know that Alicent is on her way, and man, Alicent and Alys gonna have some
Oh.
tea. But again, this goes back to me last week. Right? You should have sent Helena. I need Alys and Helena to see
Yeah.
each
This is,
other.
yeah.
The witches,
The
the
witches,
witch,
the dreamers, yeah, the
yeah.
dreamers, like, yeah, the dreamer and the witch, yeah, just to see the battle of the two, to see who will prevail.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't know, Helena, time is ticking on you because if you don't eat, you
yeah,
are yeah, which it's also Helena not eating, but she wants to keep the kid.
yeah,
So why doesn't Alicent use that angle at the end of the day? Like,
yeah.
you realize that you are mad at me because I wanted you to get an abortion. Yet, and I also wanted you to leave behind your other daughter and save yourself. And yet you're here not eating, and therefore your kid, your unborn child, is not being fed either.
Yeah.
So make up your mind, Helena.
Yeah, yeah, that was their dynamic. Well, part of it too, I think Helena doesn't fully trust Alicent now. So I think that plays into some of that dynamics there as far as her not eating. Because, once again, Alicent keeps saying, we're gonna escape the keep, and every single time, they got Alicent fails to fulfill this for Helena. So Helena's and she's seen all the things over the years with like her, with Alicent and Cole, and I don't know if she ever saw Larys doing the foot rubs and all that kind of stuff. But so I think it's a fundamental lack of trust there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think Helena has also witnessed a lot being in this family.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't think she's ever really trusted anyone in her family.
yeah. Like,
And
just give me
given
the.
what
I was like, she's like, just give me the Essos, or just give me somewhere. Just give me anywhere but King's Landing. So
yeah, but it's interesting. She's her reasoning to stay makes sense.
yeah,
Her reasoning not to eat does not.
not yeah,
Contradicts that. That's
yeah,
all my point. We get a lot. Well, we get a little bit of Ulf, who kind of kicks off this idea that when what you think you want in life finally happens, it's not
mhm,
all that it cracks up to do, and it doesn't necessarily make your life better. But we even get more of Hugh,
mhm,
also manages to go in disguise into Tumbleton and meet up with his wife, who is kind of like, "Screw you! You've been gone
yeah,
too long.
yeah,
I've been through some shit. I'm a
yeah.
different woman. Our relationship will never be the same." Wow.
That was cold. Yeah, I mean, he's like, but I did, I got this dragon for you, and it's like, but our lives, even if we were poor, we were happy. And now you did this for you, not for me.
Right, right. Which
Yeah,
which I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's also funny just how easily he got on into Tumbleton. And I'm like, you could
Yeah.
have killed him.
Yeah, how easy it almost how he almost blew his cover. Yeah, but but it definitely, he went off. We'll talk about off here in a little bit more in a sec, but it's definitely with the Dragon Riders. It's definitely setting up a situation where, for various reasons, I could see them splitting off from Team Black.
Oh yeah, everyone is. That's what a lot of this episode is about. It's yes, Rhaenyra has a line in it saying, but that's all from the Hightowers. Like they're at
Mhm.
fault here. And then I love the response. That's kind of gets a bit muddled out with the sound design, intentionally so. But
Mhm.
it's the line of Grace. I'm afraid no matter where the fault lies, we have nowhere else to look but towards you.
Right.
Like that's what Rhaenyra doesn't get is that she can blame Ormond, Hightower house in general, but they can't look over there. They can't hold them accountable for anything. They can only hold you, their queen, accountable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a great line that again gets said on Lost Ears because she does not understand I think she knows she was set up for failure. The victory came too easy, and I
Yeah.
know she lost a bunch of sons along the way, but whatever. But where it was kind of a trap in and of itself
Yeah.
of like, yeah, go ahead and take the seat, but you got no money and you have but taking the seat is one thing, but it's really about getting all of the houses on your side. And
Yeah.
that is changing slowly
Yeah.
but surely. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
also,
like what you said with Ulf and Hugh, the dragon, like Rhaenyra might not have 6 dragons by the end of this season, and I wouldn't be surprised because they're
yeah.
kind of telegraphing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, also just thinking about Rhaenyra too, and to your point about, one thing that really stuck out to me whenever the small folk were in the throne room and petitioning her again, and the second time she's gotten cut,
Yep.
and and I couldn't help but think about Viserys because he was also, I mean, that thing was slicing him up left and right all throughout the first season. And just thinking about the lore, I mean, that's just, we talk about the spirituality and all that, and the feeling of being not upsetting the gods, and getting cut by the throne is like an omen of just being unworthy to be there. So, and I think, and so just like, clearly there's always been this undercurrent. There's this thing about Rhaenyra not being worthy, but also thinking about how he came to be the king, passing over Rhaenys. Also, not, maybe not also being worthy of the throne, and a lot of the decision making that is, or poor decision making, I think is now being, for that I think the lack of preparedness that was provided her is coming full circle here now that we're seeing it as all the alliances are like starting to fall apart as far as under her reign.
And now I'm biased, but I don't blame Viserys for his lack of preparation because there were significant amount of time where she had the throne stolen from her.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then which led to the war
Yeah.
that she waged in her own pursuit of the throne. So a
Mhm.
lot of this is also of her own doing
Yeah.
and her own like miscalculations too.
True. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Oh yeah.
there is way more
Yeah.
than Viserys just not
That's right.
embracing her as the
Yeah.
eldest child.
Yeah, that is fair. That is a very fair point. A lot of this is self-inflicted, and I think and I think that her getting cut this week was just a physical reminder of that for the viewers.
Yeah, well, I think it's when she took the throne, she had bloody footsteps
Yep.
leading up to
Yep.
the throne. In this
Mhm.
episode, she has sat on that throne while bleeding.
Yeah. Yes.
So blood is definitely, and we're talking about a civil war. Like,
Iron blood. Yeah.
yep. The think that I've covered everything I wanted to
Oh,
say about
yeah.
this.
Oh, we can't. How can we? We cannot not talk about Ulf and Daemon. 'Cause, I mean, Daemon, the whole speaking of Rhaenyra and bad decisions. Well, in this situation, she made a good decision with keeping Daemon in the city to try to seek out who was killing the Gold Cloaks. But again, Daemon being Daemon and not his fight first impulsive nature, getting back to Ulf real quickly, of course, breaks the rules and goes down to Cabort and enjoys some merriment in the town. Bumps into they bump into each other. Daemon pushes him over, and then and of course it feeds into the narrative of what they're trying to avoid, which is royalty don't like hurt the common folk and try to keep the common folk happy. Which I'm trying to figure out what's the point of Massaria now as far as the Mistress of Whispers, because she's just like, if she's supposed to have the ear to the people, she's failing at her job. But the whole thing there with Daemon, I think, is just, again, just how he's pushing off away because of this acting impulsive and not just taking a deep breath before realizing that he needs to, not do that. And then I had to, when we started, we talked about the laugh out loud moment, and I was just thinking about the court scene there at the beginning, where whenever they were just trying to decide what path to take, and Daemon basically was basically told the Lord I hear no more for those whose greatest battles with their indigestion. I thought that was the other laugh out loud moment I had, because Matt Smith is just getting all the best lines.
Yeah, my takeaway from the Ulf Daemon moment was, I think it was the first time that Daemon had ever realized strength. The Targaryen strength that he boasts about won't always protect him.
Yeah.
There was just a moment afterwards realizing how public that was, and how that looked, the political aspect of it, which he doesn't care about the common folk. He hasn't. That's why he would never make a good king, is because he has no sense of politics.
Right.
And he demonstrated that in that moment, and I think he finally felt it in that moment of, also, he's like one gold cloak. It felt like somebody wearing a costume to work.
Yeah.
And you could get a sense he felt like an outsider, someone who shouldn't belong there, which is very interesting considering what we learned about the Targaryen. Yeah. So, and also last week we talked about Ser Criston possibly being Daeron's father. So, and you brought up Corlys and Velaryons. Velaryons and there is some shared blood.
Right.
That's why both families can ride dragons. Yeah. Because old Valeria that we hear about, Velaryon, that name derives from there. So they both come from old Valeria. So, I mean, it makes sense considering the marriage and the obvious, oh, you're my uncle or cousin.
Gosh, yeah.
All right. Well, until the next time we have to talk about inbreeding next week, Phil, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on all the socials at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me there too at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Scene a Nerd, on Blue Sky. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Threads at Scene a Nerd, and visit our website, www.sceneanerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you hear podcasts. Good night, geek out. You're welcome.